The movie gets launched in part because, as leader of the 20th Maine, thrown into that quite unexpectedly, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain has to take on some other members of a Maine regiment who want to mutiny, which is, as I said comically in the movie, a naval term. He gives a speech to them to try to persuade them to join the 20th Maine. Sarah, that's number 11.
And all of us have seen men die. This is a different kind of army. If you look back through history, you will see men fighting for pay, for women, for some other kind of loot. They fight for land, power. Because a king leads them, or just because they like killing. But we are here for something new. This has not happened much in the history of the world. We are an army out to set other men free.
And in that process, most of the Maine regiment members who want to mutiny, who don't want to continue to fight, in fact, follow Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. And where do they follow him? To the top of a place called Little Round Top. Geographically, I would argue, among the most significant places of topography in the entire arc of American history. Because, I'll put this to you, Ron, the battle hinged on what happened there on day 2.
Yeah, the Robert E. Lee and the Confederate Army by this time in the war were used to having victories. Robert E. Lee had 100%, probably 110% confidence in his men. He knew they could achieve anything despite the longest of odds. But on those particular 3 days, he ran up against men in blue who were not going to move. They dug their heels in.
And we're going to talk about more why they dug their heels in. I've got a great quote from Shelby Foote about what was different about fighting on their own land as opposed to being on Southern land in a second. I'm Major Garrett. We're with Ron Maxwell. Come back for segment 4 in just a second.
So on that particular day, Hood's Texas and Alabamians went up against these stubborn guys from the 20th Maine who put up one hell of a fight.
This is one of the epic experiences of my life, I'll tell you that right now, ladies and gentlemen. To be in the presence, the home of one of my cinematic and literary heroes, Ron Maxwell, creator of the movie Gettysburg, Gods in General, and Copperhead. We were about to get into the conversation about Little Round Top, Day 2, and why it was so crucial not only to Gettysburg, the battle, but American history every moment thereafter.
Right. Well, Lee was convinced that the federal forces had massed most of their troops in the center and on the right flank, the Yankee federal right flank. He had attacked the right flank the previous day on day 1, and so he thought the Yankee left flank could fold if he concentrated his energies and his military prowess at that end. So he directed General Hood and General Longstreet. Well, he directed General Longstreet, and then Longstreet directed General Hood, and that's all in the movie in great detail, to go attack the federal left flank, which was hanging. It was hanging just north of these 2 hills, Little Round Top and Big Round Top. They had not occupied those hills at that point. So the Confederate plan was to occupy those hills and then turn the flank and rout the Federal Army.
Sweep over them.
Had that happened, there would have been an open road to Washington, D.C., and the plan was to force the federal government to talk.
And to maybe engage in peace.
And peace
negotiations.
Talks.
Yes.
Because there would have been no major army between the Confederate Army and the capital. They would have been forced to evacuate, perhaps. So, and remember, they were surrounded on all sides because Maryland was a slave state, and many Marylanders were fighting for the Confederacy at that point. So Lee's plan was sound. The problem, it was thwarted because on that particular day, you had these guys from the 20th Maine who were assigned to go to that extreme left of the line, and they were commanded by this college professor, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. And he had the remnants of the 20th Maine, which was already decimated by previous battles, which he talks about in the clip you showed earlier, plus the mutineers who had decided to stay on after that stirring, rousing speech he gave, reminded them of why they were in the war and what was at stake. So on that particular day, Hood's Texas and Alabamians went up against the stubborn guy of the 20th Maine who put up one hell of a fight, and that, of course, is captured in the first half of the movie. As we know, Gettysburg has an intermission, and the last 45 minutes before the intermission is the battle on Little Round Top, which was some of the most. The whole war had ferocious hand-to-hand fighting, but if you want to get a sense of how close that combat was, that's what we tried to capture in that sequence.
The violence and the proximity of not just the shooting part of the war, but the intimate, face-to-face pugilism of the war with bayonet, with rifle butts, and everything else.
And you get a sense of how completely committed the soldiers were on both sides. It was an absolute hellish frenzy when they got engaged at that close range.